Welcome back to the lessons and stories of some of the greatest investors of all time. Today's investor got interested in the share market around the age of 11 when he was a caddy at his local golf course. He got interested because some of the golfers that he was caddying for were fund managers at a local company in Boston. Later on in his teenage years and after he finished school, he eventually graduated from Boston College in around about 1965. Around that period of time, he started to actually take some investments in some companies himself with some of the money that he had earned as being a caddy at the golf course and other part-time jobs. And one of the very first investments that he made was in an air freight company called Flying Tiger. It was the success from that particular investment that enabled this great investor to put himself through graduate school. And at the age of 25, he actually was able to get a job at a Boston-based firm called Fidelity. And in fact, a number of years prior to that, he actually did a summer internship at the same firm. By the age of 33, Fidelity was so impressed with this particular gentleman's skills and his investments that he was put in charge of what is now known as the Fidelity Magellan Fund. And he ran that fund from 1977 through until 1990. And during that period, this particular investor made for investors an average of 29% return on investment every year for 13 years. What was his name? Who was he? His name's Peter Lynch. If you had invested $100,000 with Peter Lynch in Magellan in 1977, that $100,000, by the time the fund was wound up, would have actually increased to $2.8 million. At the age of 46, Peter Lynch packed up shop and retired, closed down the fund, and has never managed money ever again. Why at the age of 46 did Peter Lynch decide that he would retire? Peter Lynch's father died of a heart attack at the age of 46. For more than a couple of decades, he'd worked virtually 7 days a week, traveled across the United States to build his knowledge and skill as an investor. Spent time away from his family, his wife, and he wanted to spend the rest of his life with them and also giving back. Peter Lynch today is a philanthropist and also sits on a number of boards of some endowments, etc., that he assists. His philosophy around investing was always very simple. Understand what you own. The share market and buying shares in companies, he says, it's not lottery tickets. They're real shares in real companies. And one of Peter Lynch's greatest investments that he ever made was in one of the most simple businesses you could ever think about: Dunkin' Donuts. Peter Lynch was an early investor in Dunkin' Donuts because he simply could see the number of cars lined up in the drive-through windows on his way to work in Boston. He went past and got a coffee, tried the donuts, and he thought, wow, what a wonderful business. This business is set to grow. And of course, we know the success of Dunkin' Donuts. And it was simple investments like Dunkin' that made Peter Lynch's investors a fortune over time. Other investments he made were in hotels, such as La Quinta. How did he make the investment? Why did he make the investment in La Quinta? He stayed there, enjoyed the service, enjoyed the environment of the hotel and the reception and the way that they were serving their customers. He took an investment, and the rest is history. Peter Lynch made over 29% return on investment for his investors every year for 13 years. You don't need to be right on everything you own. Just like any investor, Peter Lynch had his failures, but the winners were monumental, and he held on to them. And Peter Lynch will go down in history as one of the greatest fund managers of all time. Until next time, keep investing.